Alright lads, today we're going to be taking a look at the M6A2E1 Mutant. This is a battle rating 6.7 heavy tank located in the American territory. To unlock this vehicle, you'll have to reach level 75 of the ongoing battle pass. This is quite a long grind, so is it worth it? Well, watch this video to find out. Starting with the basics, this tank has a repair cost of 2,850 silver lions, and costs 10,000 silver lions to crew train the vehicle. After that, as always, we have the expert and ace qualifications, costing 480,000 silver lions and 1,200 golden eagles respectively. Moving on to the rewards, and in realistic battles with a premium account, we have an RP modifier of 588% and a silver line modifier of 450%. When it comes to customization, being an American vehicle, there are a plethora of camouflage available, including woodland, desert and winter camouflage schemes. In this video we're going to look at the mobility, armour and firepower of the vehicle before finishing with a conclusion. Moving on to the engine and mobility, and the M6A2E1 is powered by an engine producing 800 horsepower. Combined with the vehicle's weight of 69.9 tonnes, it gives this tank a power to weight ratio of 11.4 horsepower per tonne. This power to weight ratio is actually pretty bad, and is only just higher than the Tiger 2H. The tank feels pretty sluggish and doesn't really like accelerating. This is to be expected of a tank weighing nearly 70 tonnes, but seeing as this vehicle is so large and so big, it does have a surprisingly good top speed. This vehicle can reach 29 km per hour, both forwards and in reverse. While 29 km per hour forwards is rather below average, the 29 km per hour in reverse, especially for this battle rating, is actually incredibly good, despite the tank being sluggish and having a rather average top speed. Seeing as this is a heavy tank and shouldn't really be used for rushing, or not even capable of rushing, it doesn't really affect the playstyle of this tank too much. It's like Gandalf the Grey. A heavy tank is never late, it arrives exactly when it means to arrive. This tank is certainly not a medium and shouldn't be used as such. It should be used the way it was made to be used in real life, rolling up to an enemy strong point and then slowly demolishing it. The way to do well in this tank is to play it largely defensively, and as we'll see shortly, board you have some good armour and firepower. Alright, moving on to the armour and survivability, and the first thing to mention is that this tank has a crew of 5 men, as we can see with 3 in the turret and 2 in the hull. It's also worth pointing out that you can see here there is a lot of ammunition around the hull floor, just like pretty much every other American heavy tank. We do also have a ready rack in the back of the turret and at the side next to the gunner. After taking a very brief look at the actual thickness of the armour, we do have a hull here which is variable thickness. We do also have a 2-inch plate that has been welded onto the front of it, kind of like the Super Pershing at battle rating 6.3. It's not really going to do too much, it will break up those early rounds basically. Now the turret mantlet, or the mantlet sorry, it is variable thickness, about 7 inches thick here. The cheeks are a lot thicker. With that being said, let's get on to the actual armour performance itself. Alright, so starting as always with the lower frontal plate, we have between 10 and 12 inches of armour, averaging around about 260 mils of armour penetration. When we go to the upper frontal plate, we can penetrate it, particularly in the lower and the top parts. As you can see, it's a high amount of armour protection, over 190, more over 200 though really. Now a very big weak spot to mention is the cheeks of the hull. You can see here we have about 80mm, 90mm on either side. This is a very big weak spot of the tank. So if you do come across one of these things, just shoot it here or here. Now moving up to the turret, this is where this tank gets interesting, as it's pretty much unpenetrable from the front of the turret at least, especially if you don't really aim. There are spots where you can penetrate, but we'll get onto that shortly. But focusing on the main gun mantlet, pretty much the largest target on the actual turret itself. And yeah, there's no way you're getting through here, unless you manage to get very lucky and get through the gunner's sight here. But over 500mm of armour in places, it's just completely impenetrable. But the actual cheek to the turret itself is actually just as good really. It is a lot more angled, I don't think it's as thick, but that angling will make it pretty much an instant bounce for most rounds. But even in the places where you will get a partial pen, it's still over 300mm of protection, so pretty much secure. You can be penetrated up here at the top of the turret and here near the commander's hatch, but it's a very dodgy penetration. You also have the lower part of the turret, which is a weak spot again. Very hard to hit here. You are just better off hitting here or here, maybe here, but again, it's a little bit dodgy. If we turn the camera to the side of the vehicle, Running down the side of the tank we have about 40mm of protection, raises to 50 near the crew compartment. A little bit more here on the lower chassis. Remember, there is all that ammunition just located under here, so taking a shot in the centre of mass is probably going to cause an ammunition detonation. Moving to the top of the turret, again a little bit better, up to around 90mm of protection. Again, just like the lower part of the hull here, we do have a lot of ammunition in the turret bustle, so around here we'll instantly destroy the vehicle and ammunition burnout. So yeah, that's pretty much it for this tank's armour. It has a crew of 5 men, a lot of ammunition inside the vehicle, so it is quite a liability. You are taking this thing on from the front, use it here, here, underneath the gun here, or above the gun here. Alright, moving on to the weapons and firepower, and the M6A2E1 is armed with a 105mm T5E1 cannon, the same gun as found on the T29 at battle rating 7.0. Like all of the other late war American tanks, this gun is unstabilised, which will put you at a disadvantage, especially against British tanks. You can hold 60 rounds in total, with 12 of those rounds being classed as first stage ammunition. The gun itself does have pretty good vertical guidance characteristics, with 15 degrees of gun elevation and 10 degrees of gun depression. Moving on to the reloading under the loader section, and we can see that you have a base reload speed of 20 seconds, which drops down to 15.4 seconds with an ace crew. And if we move on to the targeting under the gunner section, we have a base turret rotation speed of 12.6 degrees per second, which rises to 18 degrees per second with an ace crew. Both your reload speed and turret rotation are pretty slow. A maximum reload speed of 15 seconds does put you at a distinct disadvantage at this battle rating of 6.7. For example, the Tiger II fires pretty much every 8 seconds, pretty much double the fire rate of you, all whilst having a similar damage outputting gun. While the long reload is inconvenient, it by no means makes this tank ineffective. Moving on to the modifications, this tank does get access to artillery, but does not get access to any sort of laser rangefinding or manual rangefinding equipment. Moving on to the ammunition, and your stock shell is a T32 round. This is a solid shot APC-BC and does not contain any explosive filler. It travels at 914 meters per second, making it relatively easy to aim, although it falls short of the standard 1000 meters per second velocity set by the Tiger II-H. In terms of penetration, at a range of 500 meters and at against armor angled at 30 degrees, it can penetrate 191 millimeters of armor. Your second stock shell is a T30E1 high explosive round. This travels at 945 meters per second and contains 1.55 kilograms of TNT, giving it 20 millimeters of explosive penetration at all ranges and angles. While this is a pretty effective high explosive round, your long reload speed of 15 seconds makes it pretty ineffective on the battlefield. When you need to deal with heavily armoured opponents, the T29E3 is your best bet. This is an APCR round, or armour piercing composite rigid. It contains no explosive filler and is only really effective at penetrating flat armour. APCR rounds tend to bounce straight off any type of angled armour, so try and aim for the flattest part of an opponent's tank. The round itself travels at 1128 meters per second, and at a range of 500 meters against armour angled at 30 degrees will penetrate 204 millimeters of armour. However, at a distance of 10 meters and against flat armour, that penetration increases up to 292 millimeters, highlighting just how important it is to aim at the flattest part of a tank. But finally, your go-to round will be the T13 APC-BC round. This round does contain an explosive filler of 177 grams of TNT, giving it very good post-penetration damage. This round travels pretty slow, at only 899 meters per second, which does make it marginally harder to aim than your stock shells, but this lower velocity is made up for by the post-penetration damage. In terms of penetration, at a range of 500 meters against armor angled at 30 degrees, it can easily penetrate 190 millimeters of armor, and at point blank range, it can penetrate 250 millimeters of armor. This high penetration, as well as post-penetration damage, makes most opponents an easy one-shot kill with this round. This is essentially the same round as found at battle rating 7.0 in the T29, so seeing that the M6A2 is battle rating 6.7, it is just incredibly powerful for this battle rating. Apart from the main gun, this tank has a rifle caliber coaxially mounted machine gun, as well as a pintle mounted 50 caliber machine gun. Overall, the firepower of this tank is very good, it's just let down by its long reload. To conclude, the M6 is a pretty decent reward tank, but nothing special. It's 6.7, it's kind of just the same as a T34 or a T29, albeit at a slightly lower battle rating. Seeing as you have to pay 2,500 golden eagles to get this tank, as well as grind an insane amount, I wouldn't particularly say it's worth it, to be honest. At least not for me. While it does have some cool features, mainly being so tall it can just shoot over cover, as well as shoot over most ridgelines which other tanks couldn't, as well as that incredibly trolly turret. But apart from that, there's nothing really stand out about this tank. It is easily penetrable from the front, due to the forehead of the turret and the cheeks of the hull. I've been killed from the front several times from M41 Walker Bulldogs, and they're annoying little bastards. This vulnerability to even the lightest of tanks, plus the 15-second minimum reload time, doesn't really suit this tank to be played as an aggressive heavy tank. It's more of a defensive, and in that situation, I'd rather have a tank destroyer. The tank is by no means bad though, and do you guys think you'll like this tank? And are you guys grinding this tank? Let me know in the comments below. I hope you enjoyed this review, and hopefully I have a lot more out soon.